Hello and welcome back to the Extra Point, where it is finally time to do our full NFC season preview. We've done the AFC, we did that last week, and now we're getting to the NFC at last. Today is Thursday, actually, so the beginning of week 2. My name is Jonathan, and I'm joined, as always, by my very good and erstwhile friend, James. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be back. I've got a lot of thoughts. I need a forum to express them.
Yes.
And I'm going to be unloading that on all of you.
Yes, that's this whole show in a nutshell, I would say. We have a lot to say, and we are making that all of your problems, too. So thank you so much for joining us once again. The NFC, of course, is a conference that is very near and dear to both of our hearts. You know, I think that, oftentimes AFC gives you the fireworks. You know, we both have our secondary affiliations in the AFC, but the NFC is where we started. It's where we grew up. It's our primary homes. It's the conference that I think it's safe to say we know the best and we have the greatest investment in, because that is the home of our two primary teams in the same division, no less. And so I think we're very excited to get into this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Shall we start?
I think we should start. I think we're both warmed up, we're jazzed up, we're ready. Let's jump in.
We've got a Thursday night football game to finish this before.
Yes.
And as long as Al Michaels is still on the Thursday night football team, which I think he is, it is still my favorite night for football.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Back on Prime Video. How are you liking the Prime Video broadcast? Think they've been doing a good job?
They've been all right. I like that secondary broadcast they have that's more stats focused.
Yeah.
You see the lines with the receivers, you see the play calling a lot more. I feel like it teaches you a lot more about just how plays are called in the league. It's pretty interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that this is year 3 now, I believe, of the Prime Thursday Night Football broadcast, and honestly, I think it took us all a little while to get used to it, but now that we're here and we are used to it, I feel pretty confident in saying that Amazon Prime is the best thing that's ever happened to Thursday Night Football. I really do feel that way.
Finding a way to make it interesting is no easy task.
Yeah.
Thursday Night Football has always sort of had a reputation for being a little slower, the teams haven't had a full week to prepare for this game, so they're not at the top. So
yeah, and also, I mean, Amazon is really investing in it, which I think is great. Because before Amazon Prime, the rights to Thursday Night Football were constantly being bounced around between different networks, different broadcasters. Nobody wanted to pay full price for it until Amazon came along, and so they tended to shunt a lot of the week's less interesting games into that Thursday night spot because those were the least lucrative. Mm-hmm. I mean, the networks would pay big money for Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, but for whatever reason, not Thursday night. Amazon Prime, I feel like, has finally made Thursday Night Football a prestige primetime game like Sunday night is, like Monday night is, like America's Game of the Week on Thursday afternoons. And so I've been very happy with it, honestly. I think they've been doing a great job. And so, but yes, that's starting up soon, and so we're very excited to watch that. Bills-Dolphins should be a good one. I've got my Dolphins shirt on for everyone watching at home. So
fin down or whatever they say. Fins up. What is?
Yeah, fins up.
Okay. I got that mixed up with Baird or something.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, let's talk NFC, shall we? Because I think there's a lot to cover here, just like in the AFC.
That's true. There's no NFC team playing tonight, so stop talking about Thursday Night Football. We don't care about it. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's immaterial to our purpose here just now. And so let's start. I think we have to start with the NFC East, as that is our home division for both of our primary teams. And I'd like to start, since I'm sure that you have a lot to say about the Eagles, I have a lot to say about the Giants. Let's start with a different team in the division. Let's start with the Dallas Cowboys, shall we? Um, let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. And really, I have just one question for you about the Dallas Cowboys, which is a couple days ago, right? Just as Week 1 was getting underway. Last Sunday, right, the first big main slate of the NFL season, Dak Prescott wakes up and he becomes the highest paid player in NFL history, right? Or no, pardon me, on Monday. So this was the day after the Cowboys beat the Browns in Cleveland. So this deal, I've got some of the details here. Dak Prescott has signed a 4-year contract extension with the Cowboys worth $240 million, with $81 million. So he'll take home $81 million, with $75 million of it coming in the form of a signing bonus, and $231 million of that will be fully guaranteed by March 2027. Again, the richest contract in NFL history. So here's my question for you, Jim. Dak just got his mega deal. We were waiting for that. We've got that. With that mega contract in place, do you think there is any universe where it is possible that the Cowboys get to keep Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons, all three? Is there any universe after this contract where they get to keep all three?
No, absolutely not. I mean, if there's still a salary cap here. This isn't baseball. You can't pay all of the players as much as you want. You know, if you're going to go all in on a guy like Dak, you're going to have to shed some other pieces. You're not going to be able to pay three players who are at the absolute top of their game at their position when those positions are, like you said, quarterback, receiver, defensive. It's not going to work. So out of all of these players, they've decided to go in on most Dak Prescott, more so than anyone else. And quite frankly, I think that was a big mistake for them. Their value relative to their positions, out of all three of them, I think Dak is the lowest.
Interesting.
So,
interesting.
I don't know. I think that was a mistake for them, and a very welcome mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the Cowboys, look, we know, and you and I know this very well. No one could dispute they have been a great regular season team. We know that. In the regular season, they do a hell of a lot of damage. Honestly, you never want to see the Cowboys roll into your place. You want to see the Cowboys roll into your place even less than you want to see them at home, honestly. I feel like many times the Cowboys are actually more dangerous on the road than they are at Jerry World. But yeah, the Cowboys are a very dangerous regular season team. We know they can do a lot of damage. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, as much as it pains me to say that, that's just true. I would say that they have shown a greater degree of regular season consistency and success than even the Eagles have in recent years. And again, I take no joy in saying that, but I think that's true. Now, the postseason, very different story. But right now, we're making divisional predictions, and I have to say, despite all of my inclinations, I have to rank the Cowboys fairly highly for that cause.
I suppose that makes sense. I mean, look, if we want to talk about the good stuff here, again, Dak is a very happy man this year.
Yes, he is.
He's a very rich, happy man, and I'm sure that'll factor into his play quite a bit. I mean, he's a guy who can put up some stats in the regular season, always has been. And honestly, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb at this point are potentially, one of the best thrower catcher combinations in the league.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, that CeeDee Lamb contract, when that comes down, that's going to be, you talk about the salary cap, that's scary. Because with Dak's contract, we just saw what Justin Jefferson got. Jamar Chase is up next. CeeDee's going to want to beat both of those guys. that is going to be an absolutely nuclear contract. So on top of what they're paying Dak, that's going to be grisly. There's going to have to be some losses elsewhere on the roster to compensate that.
I'm sorry. CeeDee Lamb agreed to a 4-year deal.
Oh, yes. Did we already get that? Am I misremembering?
Yes. No, actually. Well, that's interesting. CeeDee Lamb has a 4-year, $136 million deal.
Okay.
So they're giving Dak 240 and CeeDee 136.
Okay. Yes, I see what you mean. Yes, my bad. We already got the CeeDee Lamb deal. Okay. Yes, I see that.
Well, back to your point as to keeping players and whatnot, it looks like in the future, I mean, with these two massive deals, Dallas is going to need to be pulling a lot from the younger players rosters across the league and in the draft, because this isn't going to give them very much wiggle room for free agents in the very near future, is it?
No, and we saw once again this past offseason, like the past several off seasons, very little free agent movement from the Cowboys. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Basically, they put all of their stake on these homegrown mega deals and then drafting. Very few free agents come in to the Cowboys.
Very disappointing to Cowboys fans, from what I understand, their lack of activity in the offseason.
Yeah, they're often very frustrated by that, but I mean, as we've just discussed, they can't afford it. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought Zeke back, for Christ's sakes. I mean, who saw that coming? I mean, talk about reheated leftovers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's talk about the offseason for Dallas. They lost several starters. Many of them to the Washington Commanders, another division rival,
including a coach.
Yeah, they lost Dan Quinn to the Commanders as well. Yeah. The defense was very strong for Dallas last year, to be honest with you, but we'll have to see how that plays out without Quinn in the position. Tony Pollard gone. Yep. Tyron Smith is gone. And really the only big names they brought in to replace them is a former Dallas staple in Ezekiel Elliott, a very, very past his prime Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
And Dalvin Cook, who, again, you want to talk about past their prime running backs. The Dalvin Cook signing was certainly interesting. I don't even know if he's on the active roster, quite honestly. He might just be on the practice squad, but still.
I don't know. But I'm sorry, I just, not to cut you off, but I think we have to watch this, I think, because this is, we can't talk about Zeke Elliott and not play this. I think this is just too good. So we're going to have to watch this now. Are you able to see and hear that?
I am, yes.
Anyone who's wondering, they're declaring that Zeke Elliott is ineligible just by alignment, although they can lateral him the ball. Gets down in the middle of the turkey, gets smoked right away, and that'll do it. The 49ers back to the championship game.
So much.
Play looks like water penalty. Gets down in the middle of the turkey.
Eats shit completely. I love it.
And this is why the Cowboys will never make it to a Super Bowl in Jerry Jones's lifetime. That's what they do in the playoffs.
I mean, that was, just think about this, Jim. That was Mike McCarthy's idea of a game-winning trick play. That, in his mind, that made perfect sense.
I don't know if it's worse than. You remember that one play where, gosh, who was it? Where they had two guys, the snapper and the guy who was catching the ball. I think it was a running back, and then everyone else on the team lined up against the side of the end line. I mean, but you're doing something like this in the playoffs. What are you thinking?
Your season on the line.
This isn't the time or place to just I don't know. Let's riff this. See if this works.
The game was on the line. The season was on the line. The playoffs were on the line. And in Mike McCarthy's mind, that made perfect sense. See, that's why that's why we'll never fear Mike McCarthy, because that's how his brain works. He looks at that and he thinks that's a good idea. That will save the game for us.
And their exit in the wild card round last year wasn't that much more impressive either. Let's be honest.
A total dismantling.
It was awful. And considering situations like that in their exit last year, you would have thought they'd be a lot more aggressive in adding pieces during the offseason. Because what they had right now was clearly not going to get them across the finish line. But apparently Jerry thought, we have everything we need. We just need another chance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a perfect summation of his thinking. It's that everything seems to be working great. Let's really not change anything and just try it again. And maybe this time it will have a better result.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think Jerry Jones is, one of those textbook cases of how age doesn't necessarily bring wisdom with it. The two are not necessarily synonymous. But listen, the Cowboys' goals are very well defined. Once again, they are Super Bowl or bust, and they will delude themselves into thinking that this is their year, just like every year. Season starts, Cowboys get off to a strong start, beat them boys, make it into the playoffs, get eliminated in embarrassing fashion, cycle starts all over again. Right now, we're at phase 2. The season has started, getting off to a strong start. In a couple of weeks, we dem boys, round and around we go.
It's so lovely, isn't it?
You can set your watch by it.
I guess I'll save my final thought for the Cowboys on when we make our picks at the end, but I think y'all might have been able to get my impression of how the Cowboys are going to do this season based on what I've said.
Indeed. Well, let's move along then to a team that I think we'll probably have the least to say about, at least for now, in this part of the video, the Washington Commanders.
Yes.
The Washington Commanders, I think, have brighter prospects this year than they have had in a very, very long time. I'm talking decades, right? For decades, they've suffered under Dan Snyder's incompetence, mismanagement, general cheapskateness, and just Dan Snyder being Dan Snyder, which is to say awful. Of course, he had to leave the team, sell the team under a cloud of sexual harassment allegations, among other things, other financial problems. And now the Commanders, the Washington franchise, whatever they want to call that team long term, since they are discussing changing the name again, are under new management. And better management, much better management by all accounts. The primary owner is the same guy who owns the Philadelphia 76ers, Sean Harris or something like that. But he's just the front man of a large ownership group, which includes several big names, including Magic Johnson, which is pretty cool. Magic Johnson is now co-owner of an NFL team, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
And so this new ownership has reinvigorated that franchise. They've also got a new coach, Dan Quinn, brought in a bunch of high-level coordinators, high-level coaches under him. And to top it all off, the pièce de résistance of a total franchise reset, a new franchise quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Heisman winner, reigning Heisman winner, had a phenomenal season at LSU. Really, his numbers are just off the charts fantastic. The best LSU quarterback since Joe Burrow, and we remember how that went. And, things are looking up for them. We are looking at a total franchise reset, a total culture reset, and they have more hope now than they have had in a very, very long time. And so for that reason, historically, we never used to respect Washington. Never. Never ever. Since you and I have been doing this, we've never respected Washington until now. Now, I'm sorry to say it, we cannot discount Washington any longer. We have to take them seriously, I believe, as a threat in this division. I really do think so. If you ask me, they are third in this division, but they could figure out what they are, who they are down the stretch, and they could become very dangerous. And they could challenge, potentially, if it all really clicks, the Cowboys or the Eagles for the number 2 spot. I really do think so.
I think my thoughts on the Commanders are they've initiated a rebuild. They know they're in a rebuild right now. I'm not expecting them to even have a winning record this season, quite frankly. That's not to say that they're in a bad position. Quite the opposite. They are in a very good position to make a lot of strides towards becoming a competitor. You talked about Dan Quinn coming over. He brought a lot of guys from the Dallas defense with him.
Yeah.
He brought a defensive end and an edge rusher. I think he also brought their center with him. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby Wagner's there.
In Washington. Think so. Yeah, I think so.
Quinn worked with him in Seattle.
Yes, he did. That's true.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels looks like he could be very promising. He's got McLaurin, Eckler, and Ertz to all work with.
Absolutely.
That should be pretty helpful for him.
I mean, can you imagine this team in 2019, 2020? Whew, we'd be cooking. We'd be cooking.
Especially, I think, with a guy like Cliff Kingsbury at offensive coordinator, I think it could be a very, very dynamic offense.
I think so. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we forget, because obviously the Kingsbury thing didn't end so well in Arizona, but early on, Kingsbury coached up Kyler Murray to Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who early on really got the offense right.
Yeah, that's why I say that Kingsbury might have had his struggles, but I think he has the position and the ability to create a pretty interesting offense here in Washington.
Definitely. So it's safe to say we're both thoroughly intrigued by what Washington could be. They aren't that yet, but we're thoroughly intrigued by what they could be. They're free of Dan Snyder, and they have the pieces in place, potentially, to do some real damage. So, before, we would never take Washington that seriously. Now, I think we have to at least keep an eye on them. I think we have to.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, with that, we want to keep this thing moving at a good clip here because we've got our teams to talk about. I mean, this is gonna be a big one. And I think, if I may, I'd like to start with the New York Giants. May I?
Go ahead. Get your popcorn, everyone. Get your popcorn. This man is about to deliver a eulogy for the New York Giants.
Well, yes. Well, here we go. So, normally when we talk about the Giants, and when I make my big speech about the state of the Giants, I will be the first to admit I tend to lean on a lot of, generalizations, platitudes, vibes, basically, in a word. There's a lot of semantics there. And let's be honest, that's easy. We all know the vibes are bad. The vibes have been very bad for a long term. I've been feeling bad for a very long time. It's been a very painful decade for the Giants. I mean, there's no two ways about that. And so, listen, I could try once again to make another speech about, generalizations and platitudes and all this stuff. But I thought, we want to try to achieve some deeper level of analysis on this show. And so instead of just coming at you with the vibes, which you and everyone else know are bad, I'd like to present some information here, some facts, to demonstrate why, in recent history, things have been as bad as they are, how we got to this place now, right? And so let's start off with what just happened in week 1, right? So in week 1, we got blown out 28-6. The Vikings came in, blew us out 28-6. 1 year ago, we also had a home opener. The Cowboys came in on Sunday Night Football, our humiliation for the entire nation to see. The Cowboys, our most hated rivals, came in to MetLife, Sunday Night Football. They shut us out at home 40-0 last year. That was the worst blowout you could possibly have. This year, another home opener, another blowout. Jim, would you like to know how many Giants touchdowns? I mean, I just told you the score, so you already know. Do you like to know how many Giants touchdowns we scored in our last 2 home openers?
It has to be 1 or less.
Well, the answer is 0. You just did it, and that was correct. Zero touchdowns in our last 2 opening games at home. Would you like to know last week how many? So we scored, the entire team, the entire New York Giants scored 0 touchdowns last week. Do you know how many touchdowns Saquon Barkley, one man, scored last week in Brazil? I think you know. It was 3. 3 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley
should have been 4.
Should have been 4, but it was 3. Saquon Barkley, one man who is one part of the Philadelphia Eagles offense, scored 3 touchdowns. The entirety of the New York Giants scored 0 touchdowns last week. Now, would you like to know? I've got a lot of information here. So, let me ask you this. This was Daniel Jones's 20th career start with 0 touchdown passes on at least 13 pass attempts or more in a game. That's
20th?
That's the most. That's a record, Jim. That's the most since 2019. Since 2019, no quarterback with at least 13 pass attempts who started have had 20 starts with 0 touchdowns.
Saquon was really that whole team, wasn't he?
Yes, that is true.
Oh my God. 20 starts? Where I assume he played most, if not the entire game?
Yep, with a minimum of 13. Yes. 0
That's almost
touchdowns.
Unbelievable.
Now, I'm going to give you some more facts. Some stats. Since Daniel Jones signed his $160 million, or is it 140? One of those, 140 or $160 million extension. Now, this was after the playoff run, the 1-game playoff run in 2022. Early 2023, John Mara comes down and says, I want you to give Daniel Jones this extension. Everybody tried to tell him this is a terrible idea, don't do it, but he forced them to do it. Let's see what Daniel Jones has been able to do since he got all that money. All that money in that contract that everyone agrees was a great idea. So out of 18 total games that Daniel Jones could have played in since signing this contract, 17 regular season games last year, plus week 1 this year, 18 games. Would you like to know how many games Daniel Jones has actually just played, just started in, of the possible 18 games?
I have to imagine the Vito Mania took up a chunk of that.
Well, I mean, the only reason we got DeVito last year was because Daniel Jones got injured. Mm-hmm. So would like me to tell you how many games he played out of 18 possible games?
Sure.
7. 7 games out of 18 possible since that big extension. And that was, by the way, an extension given to him as someone who already had an extensive injury history, by the way. So since he got that deal, 7 games out of 18. Let me ask you, is that good enough, do you think, for the money?
Unless I was the Cleveland Browns front office, I would say no, certainly not.
Mm-hmm. For a $160 million deal, $40 million a year, 7 out of 18. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Since his deal,
unless he's throwing 4 touchdowns a game when he is playing.
Oh, well, I've got some more information for you.
Or at least averaging 200 yards a game, at least.
$40 million a year, $160 million deal. In those 7 games out of 18 that he played, he's thrown how many passing touchdowns? 2.
In 7 games?
In 7 games. 2 passing touchdowns. But don't worry, because that's only 2 passing touchdowns relative to 9 interceptions. So that's not so bad, is it?
It's not the greatest ratio.
But I wouldn't worry about it too much, because remember, 2 passing touchdowns since that extension. Want you know how many of those 9 interceptions turned into pick sixes? 3.
Oh, so he has 5 passing touchdowns.
Yes, he has thrown more passing touchdowns to opposing teams than he has to his own team since he started making $40 million a year.
Didn't he do that week 1 this year?
2 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 3 pick sixes since the extension. Now, is that good enough? Does that sound good enough to you?
Well, what about when he is making completions? How many yards is he averaging per game?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's the very next bullet point.
Because maybe he's throwing a lot of interceptions because he's just throwing the ball so many times that some of them might just be interceptions, but he's getting the ball downfield so much.
Yeah, maybe he's Brett Favreing it. Well, you know what? I'm so glad you asked, because Daniel Jones is throwing a massive 156.4 average pass yards per game. That's massive, isn't it? Think about it. The length of a football field is 100 yards, so that's what, 1.5 times one football field? That's got to be pretty good, right? Is that good enough, do you think?
I'm starting to run out of arguments here, quite frankly.
So let's recap, because again, call and response is an important part of this. So 7 games.
How are you able to throw that many interceptions if you're only throwing enough to average 156 yards?
Well, you're assuming that those passes are being passed accurately. So again, call and response is an important part of this. So just yes or no, 7 games out of 18. Is that good enough?
No.
2 passing touchdowns versus 9 interceptions, 3 of which turned into pick sixes. Is that good enough?
Not in the NFL.
Not in the NFL, not in college, not anywhere. 156.4 average pass yards per game. Is that good enough?
If we're playing half-court football, then yes. Otherwise, no.
Yes, and keep in mind, this is football in 2024, not 1924. Just keep that in mind.
Gridiron or arena?
Well, again, I think it's the century that makes a bigger difference than the format. In 2024, is that good enough?
No.
Well, how about this, right? Air yards per attempt. 3.84 average air yards per attempt.
See, that might be related to why he's only getting 156 yards a game.
Yeah. Very many, is it? No, I don't think it is very many. Well, but you know what?
Hold on. This might all be a huge misunderstanding. Are the Giants aware that there are other ways to score outside of kicking the ball for 3 points?
Well, maybe not. But
Maybe
but hey,
they're not throwing that far because they don't think they need to get that close because they can get a field goal from 30 yards out. They're not aware if they get all the way, they get 7.
yeah, well, maybe they're not throwing that far. Maybe they're getting intercepted because they are. He's trying to push it down the field. But yeah, maybe if he is throwing it short, maybe he's at least accurate. What's his passer rating? I don't know what his average passer rating is for Daniel Jones. Again, since the extension, not even before, since he got paid. Average passer rating of 65.1. Yeah. Yeah, that's the average, by the way.
For a quarterback in the top half of quarterbacks in the league going by salary.
65.1 average passer rating. Again, since he got paid. I'm not even counting all the shit before he got paid. That's since he got paid. 65.1. Is that good enough?
Not if you're one of the higher paid quarterbacks in the league, certainly.
Not even for a backup would that be acceptable.
No.
Now,
those are Easton Stick numbers.
Yeah, but what about his legs? Now, a lot of people said, well, you know what? For a white guy, he's got decent legs. Maybe he can run the ball. Maybe he can move around a little bit. Let's look at what he's doing on the ground.
It's just to preface, it's always a good sign when your biggest strength of having legs comes with a qualifier before it. For a white guy, his biggest strength is okay.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, this is a tall guy. I think he's like 6'5" or something. Daniel Jones is a tall man, so he can move around, right? What's he been doing on the ground, right? Because also, by the way, being so tall, you would think he should be throwing over the heads of a lot of these defenders and not getting intercepted quite so much. But that's another story. One rushing touchdown, again in 7 games he played out of 18 possible games he could have played. 1 rushing touchdown against 4 fumbles, one of which was lost. 1 rushing touchdown, 4 fumbles, one lost fumble.
And 1 very famous self-tackle.
Yes, indeed. So is that good enough? I mean, you've got Jalen Hurts on your team. Do you think that's good enough?
If you want to bring up the Jalen Hurts connection, for all the shit we as Eagles fans gave Jalen Hurts last year for his performance, it doesn't sound anything compared to this.
Now,
quite frankly. So no, it is not good enough.
So just to recap here, 4-year, $160 million deal, 3 pick sixes, more touchdowns to the opposite team than to his own team. And
yeah, that might be that's the most damning stat, I gotta say. That's not a stat you want to have.
No, it isn't. Again, a record 20 career starts with 0 touchdowns on at least 13 pass attempts, most since 2019. Let me ask you, do you think it's a good sign when the home team in their opening week at home, gets booed off the field at halftime? 2 years in a row, booed off the field at halftime?
Not a good sign, but it does sound like they deserved it.
They did deserve it, but it's not a good sign, is it?
Mm-mm.
Do you think it's a good idea to have a quarterback who mechanically cannot drop back the pass, seems incapable of doing so, seems incapable of running any schemes beyond a high school level? Does that sound right to you in the NFL?
If he's playing at beyond a high school level, then no, it does not.
No, it does not. Now, do you think that these results are acceptable on a Giants offense that has a massively improved wide receiver 1 and offensive line? Is that acceptable to you?
Seems kind of pointless to have those things if you're playing Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Yeah. Would it surprise you to learn that 3 of our offensive linemen had pass block win rate grades of 90 or higher last week in week 1? Would that surprise you?
That would surprise me because a lot of the blame I've seen from people who defend Daniel Jones has been on a very porous offensive line.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those people.
He didn't have that this year, and he still put up those sorts of stats.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those people because we have the facts here. We've got the stats here. As it turns out, in week 1 last week, Daniel Jones actually had an above-average time in the pocket. He had about, I have it here, 2.82 seconds in the pocket, which is 12th in the league. So above average time to make a pass in the pocket. Again, 3 of his offensive linemen pass block grades of 90 or higher. Above average time in the pocket, 2.82 seconds. And those are the results. 65.1 passer rating. 156 pass yards per game. No touchdowns. None. 0.
Just to make sure, how much you say he's getting paid again?
$40 million a year. $160 million in total.
For how many years?
4 years.
Oh. For that.
Yeah.
For that kind of performance.
Yes. The fact of the matter is, Daniel Jones is a uniquely terrible pocket manager. He has no feel for when he needs to bail, no idea when to reset, and no sense of where to flow. He doesn't have any of that. Despite having an above-average time in the pocket, he cannot do any of those things. At all. Except for throw interceptions. He can do that. He's very good at that. Yes. Do you think it's a good sign when the fans of your team, after your home opener, are in the parking lot burning jerseys of your starting quarterback? Do you think it's a good sign when they're chanting, "We want Tommy," as in we want Tommy DeVito, not our backup quarterback, mind you, our third-string quarterback? After your home opener, they're calling for the third-string guy to come back?
At least it sounds like it's driving passion in the fan base.
Jersey burnings. And we want the third stringer.
That's a form of passion.
That is well, yes, it is a form of passion. You're right. That is a form of passion. My point is this. In reading all of these stats to you and these facts to you, is that, and I really do believe that things in this life prepare you to understand how you can simultaneously love a thing and be so angry with a thing, like loving a sports team. You know? I really do believe that few things in life prepare you to understand that contradiction between loving something and just feeling a murderous rage towards that same thing. I feel like that and parenthood. Parenthood and being a fan of a sports team are the two things that prepare you for loving a thing and just despising a thing at the same time. I love
it's sports and having an opposite gender sibling.
Yeah, well, pretty much. Listen, I love the Giants, right? The Giants are my team, and I'm proud of it. I expect to be a Giants fan for life. I really do. But it has been a very, very painful decade. And for the past 5 years, 6 years, however long it's been, I'm sorry, but I have to lay the blame chiefly at the feet of one man. And that is, well, two men. Dave Gettleman, our former GM, he's gone, thank God. And Gettleman's worst folly, his drafting of Daniel Jones at 6th overall in the 2019 draft.
That high?
Yes, that high. It was a mistake then. Everybody knew it. Everybody said so. They all mocked us. And then, ever since then, all we have seen is just how right they were. For some time, there were a lot of Giants fans who wanted to delude themselves into not believing what their eyes were seeing, that maybe there is some value to Daniel Jones that only we can perceive, that no one else in the NFL universe can perceive. And he had one decent season, one decent to pretty good season. He gets this contract, and now we're shackled to this guy for at least the remainder of this year. I'm sorry, but he is not the guy. He has never been the guy. He has never produced results to suggest that he is the guy, to suggest that he is capable.
No.
And quite frankly, and I've said this to you before, until we finally close this sorry chapter and find a way to move forward, we will continue to be the laughing stock of this league, because so long as we're putting this guy up as our starter week in and week out, the rest of the NFL knows the New York Giants are not serious about winning football games. And Jim, believe me when I tell you, that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart so badly, because we have real talent on this team. No one can convince me otherwise. We have real talent. We have great players on this team, right?
Yeah.
We've got Malik Neighbors. We've got Jalen Hyatt. We've got Andrew Thomas. We've got Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. You cannot tell me this team does not have real players, great players, right? But we are demoralized because how can these guys work together and be cohesive and fight before we have cut out the cancer that is killing this team? All right? Listen, I'm not asking for a winning season. I'm not asking for playoffs. I'm not asking for a Super Bowl. All of those things will come, I'm sure, in time. But all I have wanted for almost a decade, is a sustainable path to success. This team is capable of that. Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen are capable of that. We can take what we have, even without Saquon, and we can win games in this league, and we can be taken seriously in this division, in this conference.
You can conceivably say they had reasonably pulled the cord on Daniel Jones. Perhaps if they had perhaps drafted a quarterback like Jaden Daniels in this offseason, and everything else was the same coaching staff, same offense, same defense. The only difference is Jaden Daniels instead of Daniel Jones. I think
everything is different.
I think people would be saying they could be heavily competing for second in the NFC East, if not first.
Absolutely. We would be living in a completely different world. You cannot tell me
everything else was the same except that.
You cannot tell me that this team does not have real, major, serious talent on it. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one player we don't have that nobody else has. Nobody else has a Sexy Dexy. Only we've got Sexy Dexy. You all wish you had Sexy Dexy. We've got him. This team has got real talent, right? But we cannot get out of neutral until we cut out this cancer. Okay? I'm sorry. Listen, Daniel Jones, by all accounts, is a good guy. He's not a bad guy. This is not Deshaun Watson we're talking about here. Daniel Jones is a decent human being. But at a certain point, we have to recognize that we have to place the fortunes of this team above the idea of hurting Daniel Jones's feelings. Okay? I just read off his stats to you. Are those the stats of a man who has a right to an ego? Especially a man who's getting paid $40 million a year to do that? Do you think that someone who's getting paid $40 million a year to do that has earned the right to an ego? It's just a yes or no question. Yeah, no, exactly. We have got to stop being afraid of our own shadow here. Listen, I'm sorry that Daniel Jones, who again, by all accounts, is a nice guy, that his feelings are going to be hurt, right? His feelings are going to be hurt. Everybody's going to say that he wasn't good enough, and that's why he got benched. But I'm sorry if that's the truth. He's not good enough. And at the end of the day, what's more important? The New York Football Giants or Daniel Jones's feelings? What's more important? What's the bigger idea that we have to fight for there?
I mean, it depends. If you're Daniel Jones's mother,
But for literally anyone else in the world.
Well, as an Eagles fan, I'd say keep giving Jones his shot. He's gonna pay off for you guys one day.
Okay, well, as a football fan.
Yes,
bro,
then in that case, if I'm being neutral, then of course not. You should have cut him at the first sign of trouble years ago.
Exactly. And you want to know why the Giants are now once again facing down a full-scale fan revolt? Because we got blown out at home in our home opener, except this time, unlike last year, this time it was so predictable. That's why this one somehow hurts even worse than last year. And that, let me tell you, getting shut out by the Cowboys, that hurt. That hurt bad. But this hurts even worse because this time it was so predictable. We watched that game on Sunday, and nothing has changed. It was the same old Giants from last year. Again, the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. What we saw last week, that could have been a 2023 game. Nothing had changed. It was so predictable. And Sam Darnold did that to us. It's not just Daniel Jones's inability to score any points. Sam Darnold, this defense was supposed to be clicking, was supposed to be great. And Sam Darnold came in and did that to us. It's shameful. It's shameful. Why should the fans, again, we're talking about a quarterback who's getting paid $40 million a year, much, much more money than any average fan is likely to see in their entire lifetimes, right? Hard-working people who spend their hard-earned money to show up to the games, to buy tickets, to buy merch, to buy season tickets, they show up. Don't they deserve to see a football product better than this from a guy who's making more money than the vast majority will ever see in their lifetimes? Than their families will ever see in their lifetimes? Don't they deserve better? Don't all of us fans deserve better? The people who stand by this team, who support this team, who love this team, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who spend money to support this team, who make podcasts talking about their team, right? Don't we deserve better than this? Don't we deserve better than this?
Yes, you do. A storied franchise to be in such disrepair for so many years is just tragic to see.
Exactly.
It hurts even as an Eagles fan, it hurts the competitiveness of the NFC East when a team just is like this year after year.
Because as you just said, I'm so glad you said that, this is a historic team. The Giants are a blue blood franchise, literally a blue blood franchise. As blue blood as you get in the NFL. This is our historic 100th season, 1924 to 2024. 100 seasons of the New York Giants, one of the oldest teams in the entire NFL. This is a historic franchise, which has had great success in the past. We are so much better than this. The legacy of this team is so much more than this. And that is why you're seeing the jerseys getting burned in the parking lot. That is why you have a full-scale fan revolt at the stadium and online. That's why that chanting for Tommy DeVito to come in now. It's only week 2, and people are already saying put Tommy DeVito in, the third stringer, because you know what? At least Tommy DeVito gives us some hope. At least Tommy DeVito is a hometown kid who inspires people. All Daniel Jones is let us down and steal our money and break our hearts. What do we owe him after all that?
$40 million a year?
Well, there you go. There you go.
That's what you owe him.
I know. But I'm asking you, if someone in your life, right, who you cared about, for years only let you down, stole your money, and broke your heart, you'd be pretty frustrated. You'd want that person out of your life, wouldn't you? I know I would.
Unfortunately, you can't send Daniel Jones to rehab or therapy.
No.
Unfortunately, that's not on the table.
Because he is fundamentally limited. And again, he's a nice guy. It's not his fault that he was massively overdrafted. But here's the truth. The fact that so many people, both inside the Giants and outside of it, have known from the very start. This is a man who is simply fundamentally limited. He is not up to the task of being a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Right?
It's just it's a money pit, isn't it? Just more time, more energy and money just gets poured into Daniel Jones, and the more that they do it and the less return they see, the more they continue to have to do it because they've invested so much in him already.
Well, exactly. And that's why it was just so maddening watching that Vikings-Giants game during week 1. It was just so maddening because, again, it was so predictable. It didn't have to be this way. It shouldn't have been this way. And hear this, all right? Brian Daboll and a lot of people on social media are saying this now. Brian Daboll needs to wake up in a hurry. He needs to wake up and realize that Daniel Jones has already killed off the last 2 Giants head coaches. And he will do the same to Daboll unless Daboll wakes up and throws Daniel Jones overboard first. You either throw him overboard or everybody's going down with the ship. I guarantee you, everybody goes down with the ship unless they take action first. Because if they keep on like this and the results continue to be what they've been, and I can read you the stats again, we know what the results are, the entire ship is going down, I promise you. And John Mara will make Daboll the scapegoat for his own mistake, which was insisting on giving Daniel Jones the contract in the first place. Daboll needs to wake up and take some initiative, because otherwise, everybody's getting fired. Everybody's getting fired. Mark my words, it'll happen.
It needs to be. There need to be some drastic changes in New York, certainly.
Exactly.
May I ask your final thought on the matter of the Giants in 2024?
Well, I think I've said the most important things, which is, again, I love my team. I love the Giants, and that's why my heart breaks, because I know that we're so much better than this. Again, I don't ask for Super Bowls. I don't even ask for playoffs. I just ask for my team to not be a laughingstock anymore. I want the Giants to be the Giants again. I don't think that's too much to ask for. My team, which I love, has been in prison for a decade now. And I am so sick of it because I know that we've got talent. I know that we are so much better than what we are putting out there. Right? And so, I'm sorry, Daniel, but you've got to go. We are heading for a divorce, one way or another. It's going to happen. All right? Next year, at the end of this league year, contract opens up a little bit. We can cut him after this year. It's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. So I say, let's just do it now. Rip off the Band-Aid, right? We've got Drew Lock as our second stringer, who I think will be a market improvement on Daniel Jones. I think he did some solid work as the Seahawks backup last year. Obviously the Broncos, it wasn't great, but I mean, he did win a few games. I mean, let's not forget that. I think we've got a backup who can come in and do the job properly for this season right now. All right? Because I cannot, this is the last point I want to make. I cannot bear the thought of another lost season. I can't bear it. After last year, I can't bear it. So let's put Drew Lock in there. Let's get this season back on track. All right? Because we are so much better than this. We are so much better than this.
And before we move on, I will just offer my one final thought. Comes in the form of a summary that I would like to make. As a very New York reference. I'm going to try to make this related to New York.
Yes.
The way it sounds, the New York Giants, you and the Giants are Colin Jost and Pete Davidson, and Daniel Jones is a used, dilapidated Staten Island ferry.
Yeah.
That they shouldn't have bought in the first place, and it's just going to sink all of them.
Yeah, and actually, I have a question for you. Actually, as an Eagles fan and as a football, not even as an Eagles fan, as just a football fan.
The final word on the Giants. Yes.
Yes, as a football fan in general, you're laughing at us, aren't you? I mean, you can be honest. You are laughing at us.
Of course I am.
Of course you are. Of course.
Why wouldn't I be?
Yeah, and the entire rest of the NFL world is doing that, and I just desperately want to put a stop to that. Because I love this team, and I know we're so much better than this. And so I'm done talking, but before we move on, I do have a video to show you, which I think encapsulates these points very well.
Let's see it.
Let me share this with everyone, because I think this does a great job of summarizing these very points. Okay, are you able to see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from a fellow Giants fan on Twitter, a guy I really like.
Out of being a fan of the New York Giants. Daniel Jones has sucked the fun out of being a fan of the New York Giants. Daniel Jones makes people not enjoy NFL Sundays and watching their New York Giants. Daniel Jones has made it embarrassing to be a fan of the New York Giants.
Yes.
It is disrespectful that Daniel Jones is the quarterback of this organization. In the 100th year of the New York Giants, we have to watch Daniel Jones play quarterback. It's disrespectful to all the people that laid the foundation of the New York Football Giants. It's disrespectful to the people that have put their life into making the New York Giants an all-time great organization. Daniel Jones is embarrassing to the history of the New York Giants. And until they move on, they will continue to be what they are, which is embarrassing and a joke. John Mara, this is your fault.
Yes.
Brian Dable, this is your fault.
Yep.
Joe Shane, this is your fault. Because you continue to employ Daniel Jones as the quarterback for this team.
Exactly right.
I don't want to wear this anymore. I don't want to watch him play football anymore. Daniel Jones does not deserve to wear a Giants uniform, and he definitely does not deserve the right to call himself a New York Football Giant. He is the worst quarterback in National Football League history to sign a multi-year extension to remain with the team that drafted him in the first round.
Yes.
Daniel Jones has killed the hope, the love, and the spirit that thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that bleed giant blue. It's a joke, and I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, and I want to play that final statement again, because that says everything, and you see why I love this video.
Drafted him in the first round. Daniel Jones has killed the hope, the love, and the spirit that thousands and hundreds of thousands
of people that bleed giant blue. That's it right there.
It's a joke.
That's it.
And I'm embarrassed.
I love that video. That just sums it up so perfectly. Daniel Jones is not bigger than the New York Football Giants. The New York Football Giants are so much bigger than Daniel Jones. And we deserve so much better than this. He has sucked the fun out of NFL Sundays. And I want that fun back. I want that dignity back. I want that pride back. Because we have the history. We have the legacy. And we've got the talent right now. We need to turn the page on this legacy and this era of failure. Abject failure. It is time. It's past time to turn the page. The best teams, they don't wait to get better. They get better right now. Do you think some of the best run teams in this league, the Ravens, the Rams, the 49ers, the Packers, you think that they would tolerate this kind of quarterback play for 5 years, 6 years? No. They would see half a season of this and they would ditch him. The 49ers got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy G, ditched him. The Rams got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, ditched him. You know, the Texans had Deshaun Watson, who was at least pretty good on the field. They ditched him. You know, the best teams in this league do not wait for an invitation to get better. They just do it. The Giants can be that. They should be that. And I believe we will be that again, but we have to turn the page. This era of failure must end. And we have to get back to being the New York Football Giants. So that's my speech. That's my statement. And I think that that video encapsulates it perfectly.
Well, I mean, I have to be honest. There's a certain tone in the voice of both you and that gentleman. You could hear in both of your voices just the years of pain bubbling under and finally coming loose. Full stream of consciousness unleashing. It does show that you do have the passion for this team.
I do.
And there's so much frustration from the fact that that same team does not have that same passion for you as the fan base.
I do. I believe that brighter days, better days are ahead, but we have to make the decision now, right now, to turn the page. No more waiting. No lost season. Not again. We have to decide right now who we want to be. You know, those bright days, those sunlit uplands, we can get there, but we have to decide who we want to be right now. We have to turn the page right now.
Well, as a fan of competition, I wish you and the Giants the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Shall we?
Yes, it's time. We must get to the Eagles. So I've said my piece. Now James takes the floor.
The Philadelphia Eagles. What can I say about them? Last season, they started off the year looking unstoppable. They looked like a team that would have a smooth, easy road to the end of the season, through the playoffs, and into the Super Bowl. And the second half of that was the most dramatic collapse I've probably ever seen of a top contender in my time watching football. But I'll be honest. I have not prepared as much to say about the Eagles this season because I don't think they have quite yet hurt me in the way that the Giants have hurt you.
Not even close. My God, not even close.
If we look at the reason for the Eagles' struggles last season, a lot of that was play calling, coaching. That issue has been addressed. Got rid of offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, brought in Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, both very talented people. The secondary of the Eagles was disastrous last season. That has been addressed. Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell have been brought in. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is back. The future of the Eagles' offense has been safely secured. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith have their contracts. Saquon Barkley is here to stay. Dallas Goedert still looking like every year still looks like he's ascending more and more. And Jalen Hurts. Let's see. When you look at the collapse of last season, it's hard not to at least place some of the blame on Jalen Hurts. That's not to say that he was bad. Far from it. He was a Pro Bowler last season. But there was a lot of mistakes from him. Threw for over 3,800 yards. That's pretty good. 38 touchdowns through the air and on the ground. Pretty good. But, the mistakes were there. The reads weren't great. A lot of that could be on the play calling. We saw in the opener this season a lot more dynamic play calls, which led to much greater success. I think Hurts' main problem last season is just his reads. He threw 15 interceptions in 17 games. It's not Daniel Jones bad, but almost as many interceptions as games played is not great.
Yeah, perhaps middling, yeah.
For a guy who was thought could very well be the MVP coming into that season, I'd say he performed under expectations. I have a feeling that Jalen Hurts is going to give me a lot of heart pain, not heartache, but heart pain over the course of the next 10 years or so. I don't know. He seems like he can be all over the place. He goes from having MVP caliber year to having a year where he's making a lot of mistakes he wasn't making before and throwing a lot of interceptions. And then we get to training camp this season where everyone was talking about it. He was smoking all training camp. He was throwing all these touchdowns, all these passes. He did not throw a single interception until the final day of training camp. Passing completion rate of like 80-90%. And so it seems, oh my God, it seems like he might be making a big step forward. We might be getting back, MVP caliber Jalen Hurts again.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And then we see the first game of the season. Again, not terrible, not bad, but the Eagles' offense has lost the poor play calling from the previous management. Their offense is chugging along really well, but still, Jalen Hurts, after all the amazing things he did in training camp, back in the game, he's making weird mistakes again. He's poor reads, 2 interceptions, dropped 2 snaps, just dropped them. First one hit his chest. The second one was tush push. He just couldn't get onto the ball. Thank God Saquon was there. But I don't know. Jalen is he has an incredible amount of talent, but he's a bit of a concern to me with the consistency of his play. But the Eagles have so much potential in every other aspect. Like I said, the coaching staff is great. The offense is all there, and they're going to be there for a while. The biggest problem probably is losing Jason Kelce. We're going to have to see how the tush pushes look in the Jason Kelce-less Philly offense.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe there's less, or maybe they set it up differently. I don't know.
They tried it in week 1 and they didn't have as much success.
Yeah, and the guy who's going to be the center in those tush pushes now is a guy who was playing a different position last year. So we're going to have to see how that works out. But Eagles have an incredible offensive line. The running backs are great. Saquon, as we've seen, he is not washed at all.
Oh.
He is still at the top.
He's reinvigorated. which is so frustrating.
Exactly. He's playing for a team that has winning aspirations, and that's clearly motivating him right now. Running backs behind him are pretty good too. Kenneth Gainwell's a great running back right now.
Which also, it should be noted, Saquon is from Allentown, Pennsylvania, so very much in the Eagles' sphere of influence. So this is kind of like coming home for him.
Exactly. Perhaps part of a reason why he is so motivated.
I think so.
Yeah, and the depth at wide receiver is great right now. To have both AJ and Devonta on your team. Pretty great.
Must be nice.
Yeah. I think Barkley's going to be incredible throughout the whole season. I'm hoping that based on what we saw in training camp, that week 1 was just some rust for Hurts that he's got to shake off, and he'll return to MVP form. He has the weapons for it, so he certainly can. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say about the Eagles, is that I'm very hopeful for this season. All the pieces are in place, all the pieces are ready to go. Coaching staff's there, the talent's there on the field. And yeah.
All right. So
the year 1 of the post Kelsey era Eagles, I'm feeling confident about.
So, since we know the most, we're most intimately involved with the NFC East. What's your projected ranking for the NFC East? First, second, third, and fourth.
I'll go bottom to top. And I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. We both know what's happening. We both know what's going on.
I think New York is going to be fourth, and a distant fourth, potentially. Even if, like you said, even if they ditch Jones halfway through the season, bring in DeVito,
or Drew Lock,
it might be better for them. But I mean, you and me both know having those two start at quarterback, it'll at least make the Giants more enjoyable for you to watch as a fan, to see them actually having the courage to make moves like that. But it probably won't have a huge effect on the final standings for this season. That would be more about sending a message, I presume. So either way, I just don't see the Giants winning a lot of games. If they can't be that competitive against Sam Darnold's Vikings, I don't see what they're going to do against everyone else, especially not any of these teams in the NFC East. I'm sorry to say that. I'm not trying to.
No, not at all. The worst part is normally I would try to fight back, but I can't. I want to fight back against what you're saying, but I can't. I agree with everything you said. How can I not? So.
And I think this is going to go pretty predictably for me. I'm going to have the Commanders third. I think they're certainly on an upward trend, but they still have a lot of work to do. And by the way, that's I'm going to pull us out of the moment here and just say that's 2 interceptions now for Tua Tagovailoa in the first quarter.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's no.
And one of them was a tipped ball that was just a coincidence, but that was pretty egregious. I don't know what happened. It looked like the receiver was on a comeback route, and Tua had no idea because he just threw it as though he would have kept running. So.
Well, we'll tell you what, Dolphins. You send Tua to the Giants, and you can get Daniel Jones. Maybe you can make him work.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Send that white boy south. Yes. give him a tan. He needs it.
Yeah, well, it worked for Baker. I mean, Baker's cooking in Tampa. God, he's cooking.
It's true.
We'll talk about them in a second, but yeah. But anyway, continue.
But yeah, I think Washington's on the upward trend. I think in a year or two, give it 1 to 3 years, they can pose a significant threat to the rest of the NFC East. But right now, they're in a building stage, and I'm sure there'll be some very good flashes coming out of them. But I'm not seeing them competing to win the division.
Okay.
2.
It's tough, isn't it? It's tricky.
I don't know that it is. I don't think the Cowboys are any better than they were last season. I mean, does anybody really? They're in pretty much the same situation. If anything, they've spent more money, but they've only lost pieces, not gained. So.
But the most valuable pieces are now secure, or at least most of the most valuable pieces.
Sure. Is that going to make them better?
The crown jewels, if you will.
Is that going to make them better this season?
Well, better we'll see, but they're secure at least, which counts for something, I think.
But what we have to consider here is perhaps the most important factor in all of this. The one thing that separates the Cowboys from the Eagles in their chances to win this division. We're talking about the NFC East. You know what record the NFC East as a division holds since 2002? Since 2002, when every single team that is currently in the NFC East has been in the NFC East.
No, what's the record?
What hasn't happened in the NFC East in the entirety of its existence in its current structure?
It hasn't happened. I mean, most things have happened at this point.
How about a back-to-back division winner?
Oh, yes, that's true. That hasn't happened. Yeah.
And who won the division last year?
Cowboys did.
Exactly. I don't see this Cowboys team beating that record. I will, in a situation where if you want to take the position that both teams could take it, I'm not going to bet against such a tried and true tradition as the NFC East not crowning the same team 2 years in a row. Therefore, Dallas 2, Eagles 1.
That is very fair, and that is very compelling that you bring that up. It's a very compelling point. Yes, it's true that we have not had in the past 20 years a back-to-back division winner. That's very peculiar. Certainly.
Hell, the vitriol in the NFC East is there that I can see teams like this just not letting that happen. They won't let that happen.
And
they won't let Dallas win 2 years in a row. The Commanders and Giants, I'm sure they'll even join in on that, making sure that doesn't happen.
I think that's true.
The Commanders will join in on making sure that doesn't happen.
Yes, and so I think that's true. And so my ranking would go like this. I think that is very compelling. I'm even inclined to agree with you that since that has historically been the case, that there won't be a back-to-back, and then therefore it would be the Eagles. But I don't know. I think there's enough there to suggest that I think that these two teams are mostly, not entirely, but mostly at the same power level they were last year. And so for that reason...
Wait, hold on. Don't spoil it. Give us your ranking.
I am giving you your ranking. And so I am giving you my ranking. And so while that is compelling, and I am inclined, because you reminded me of that, to say that yes, the Eagles will win the division, because, as I said, I think that these two teams are mostly at the same power level they were last year. I think that the Cowboys could buck that trend. I'm not going to completely discount that possibility. As you said, I would honestly give even odds to either of these teams, Philadelphia or Dallas, winning this division. I would. Even odds. I could certainly see a very affirmative case for Philadelphia. But I could also see an affirmative, or at least non-negative, case for Dallas. And so, honestly, just to annoy you and to have a difference with you, I am going to say these Cowboys do buck that trend. It'll be close. No matter what happens,
it'll be historic.
It'll be historic, yes. No matter what happens, it will be close, historic. As I said, even odds, Dallas, Philadelphia to take the top spot. But just to annoy and needle you, I will take Dallas to win the division back to back. So Dallas, Philadelphia, a Washington team that could discover itself and emerge into something dangerous. And then, as you said, way, way down low, you'll have the Giants in the basement. Listen, I can accept struggling. I can accept the process. But Daniel Jones has made my team into a joke, into a laughingstock. And that I can't forgive. And so until we throw him overboard, we're going to be in the pits. We are. We are going to be in the basement of this division until we decide it's time to turn the page. All right? Struggling, I can forgive. Youthful inexperience, I can forgive. But turning the team that I love into a joke, I cannot. So, Giants all the way down at number 4.
Very well.
All right. Well, now that we've spent a good hour on our division.
Yeah. So let me just put that in. Oh, wait, I already did. Yes. That is our NFC East, our very in-depth.
Yes, NFC very East. In-depth. But, we know this stuff. We love this stuff. So
that's true. And nowhere else in this podcast will you see us go as in-depth into a team that we expect to be last in division as we did right here. All right, we are back. And this time we are going to rifle through these next divisions. We'll still give them proper time and care, but we are going to start off here with the NFC South. Jonathan,
yes.
What team would you like to speak about first?
Well, let's talk a bit about, again, this will be a very quick one, I think, the New Orleans Saints. I think we said pretty much all that we have to say about the Saints when we talked about Dennis Allen being on the hot seat. They're just, as we've been saying, in the post Sean Payton, Drew Brees years, as their Super Bowl window has closed, they are trapped in a kind of cap hell that they cannot seem to escape. They still have several very talented players on their team, particularly, some names on offense come to mind: Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave. I mean, they've got some very talented folks there.
Rashid Shaheed starting to look pretty good.
Looking good. So, they've got some good stuff going on there. But Derek Carr does not look like he's taken a big step forward from his Raiders days. And it just seems like Dennis Allen hasn't really succeeded in developing a distinct new culture for the New Orleans Saints. He still feels very much like Sean Payton light. And that's not how you're going to distinguish yourself in this division or indeed this conference or the league overall. So I think they're stagnant. I think they're trapped in a very unfavorable cap situation. And so I expect that, just like in the past couple of seasons, I think the end result for the Saints will be middling. And again, it's not that there's a lot that's gone wrong per se, but they're not moving forward with much momentum, know?
Yes. Yeah, to that point, as you said, the Saints have the worst cap situation in the league. I think basically they need to pretend. They need to stop pretending like they're contenders. They need to just rip off the Band-Aid. Stop signing high price tag players. Just bring the spending down and just get into a rebuild. Get into a rebuild sooner rather than later. You're not competing. It's fine. You can't win them all. Just stop pretending. Admit it. You need to, and just do it already.
Yeah, and by the way, to that point, I think that's exactly right, because I think New Orleans Saints and the Saints fans in particular, they're so paranoid, they're so terrified of going back to the bad old days when for many years the Saints were known as the Aints. They did nothing and they were going nowhere. You had the Aints and the Succaneers in what is now the NFC South. And I understand why they're terrified about the idea of backsliding and going back into that. But listen, a rebuild doesn't have to be that. I mean, look at the Giants, right? I'm sitting here dreaming of a rebuild. I mean, there's no shame with the pieces that they already have. I think it could be a relatively short rebuild, but the first step of successfully completing a rebuild is admitting you're in one, And so I think that's what the Saints have to do. They can go somewhere, they can do some good stuff, but they have to just own up to where they are and what they have to do to get back to where they want to be. Just because you're rebuilding doesn't mean you're the Aints. Again, you can still hold your head high and build for the future. So I think that's a very good note that you added onto the Saints there. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
How about we swing up north to the Carolina Panthers? Now, it's a tricky situation. They were the worst team in football last year, and that's saying something because the Giants were really bad last year. The Patriots were really bad last year. Washington was quite bad last year. And yet, at the pinnacle of all or I should say, the nadir of all that awfulness, you had the Panthers. They were a special kind of bad. It was a nightmare.
None of those other teams lost 15 games.
No. They tried Frank Reich. That didn't work. That really didn't work. And yeah, they gave away some very valuable picks to Chicago, some picks that Chicago is now basically used to rebuild their entire team from the ground up, in the past two drafts, so that they could move up to number 1 last year to draft Bryce Young. And, I've been learning a little bit more about Bryce Young since we've started doing this show, because, I wanted to get back to rediscover, well, what was the appeal? The Panthers saw so much in him that they traded up, gave away some very valuable picks to Chicago to make sure they could land Bryce Young at number 1. And if you remember, you put your mind back to last year, it was a tie race. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, who should go number 1? They really wanted Bryce Young. They really didn't want anyone else to potentially get Bryce Young. And so they jumped up, gave away a lot to get that number 1 pick. And so the more I read about this guy, Bryce Young did do a lot of good stuff at Alabama. I've learned that. This is a guy who was very impressive at Alabama. He was also, as I recall, a Heisman winner, right? This is a guy who has a pedigree, legitimately. The knock against him was that he's a bit small. He's a bit undersized. He's not big, imposing. But he could move, and he was very accurate. That's what they said. And so this is a guy who had a lot of success at Alabama. And I was really surprised reading this because, it caused me to realize in a way that I hadn't before and think in a way that I hadn't before that, I can see the appeal to Carolina. I can see the appeal in this guy. This is a guy that can be a franchise quarterback, potentially. If he realizes his potential in the NFL, he can be a very good franchise quarterback if you can get him up to that level. The potential is there. That potential was definitely unrealized last year, but this year they've brought in a head coach who they believe can help unlock that potential. And I'm rooting for him. Honestly, I am. I hope that he does find some success, a good amount of success in this league. We just have to see it now. And I think Dave Canales, the new head coach, I think if anyone can get it out of him, it's him. Canales did great work with Geno Smith in Seattle, did great work with Baker in Tampa. So I am rooting for Bryce Young to succeed. I think that he has the potential there to be someone special. But we have to see it. This is a total reset year for the Panthers. And they've brought in some interesting playmakers. I think they had a pretty solid draft. Honestly, I think it was a good draft for them. So yeah, we just have to see. I have no doubt they'll have more success this year than they did last year. That's a very low bar to clear, but I think they will clear it. So we'll see. It's a giant question mark, but the potential is there. And I personally, I will be rooting for Bryce Young. He's a good guy. He's got potential. I think it's good for football if this guy can succeed. We don't want first overall picks who are busts. We want first overall picks who are big winners. That's good for the team. It's good for football. It's good for the NFL. It's good for the sport. So I'm rooting for him. We'll see what this team can be. But right now we just don't know. But I think it could be a good story if it works out.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with all of that. I hope the best for Bryce Young. I would like to see what his kind of style of play can look like going forward. Yeah, brought in a new head coach, brought in some weapons for Young to throw to. So yeah, we're just gonna have to see how that goes in the future. I don't see their standing being that much better this year, quite honestly. This seems like this is going to be step 2 on a very long road for Carolina to come back to relevance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, how about the Atlanta Falcons? Should we talk about the Atlanta Falcons? I am a big fan of what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. Honestly, I think that they made absolutely the right choice moving on from Arthur Smith. They couldn't get that guy out of the room fast enough, thank God. Exiled him off to Siberia, a.k.a. the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And brought in the guy who, if you ask me, should have had the job to start with, Raheem Morris, who did a very good job as the Falcons' interim after they fired Dan Quinn. He did a great job as the interim coach, and yet they let him walk to go elsewhere. They brought in Arthur Smith. Big mistake. But they got rid of him. They brought Raheem Morris back, and who comes, by the way, very highly recommended by both Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. Both of them agree. Both of them have worked with Raheem Morris. Both of them had glowing things to say about Raheem Morris, which I think is very encouraging. He brought several Rams coaches with him. And now what they've done, I think, in Atlanta is they've built a kind of Rams East, which I think is very exciting. And I think with Kirk Cousins, I mean, by the way, Desmond Ridder, talk about a failed experiment. I mean, that was not going anywhere. He got traded to the Cardinals. The Cardinals cut him after camp. It's like, you can go. Honestly, we don't need you, even as our backup. And now they've got Kirk Cousins, someone who is, comported himself well, a legendary bag securer. I'll give him that. He is a legendary bag securer. But look, on the field, he has comported himself well. He is very capable. The concern is mid-30s, coming off an ACL. That's tough. But, hey, don't panic, because even if he gets injured again, guess who we've got waiting in the wings? Michael Penix, first-round quarterback who the GM and the coach absolutely love. So even if Kirk goes down, they've got a guy, a first-round quarterback who's ready to go, who the GM and the coach love. So they've got playmakers. They've got Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They've got the right quarterback. They've got the right coach. Atlanta is now the East Coast Rams, and I like it. I like it a lot. So bring it on. I give Atlanta's offseason a big thumbs up. Big thumbs up.
Yeah. I agree with all of those sentiments. I think Atlanta is going to be going to be looking like a really good team this year. They've made a lot of the improvements that they needed to, addressed a lot of their concerns, and yeah, I'm thinking they're going to be doing pretty well in this division, especially.
Absolutely. And so potentially the other big threat in this division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What an opener for them, right? I mean, that was just fantastic, wasn't it?
I mean, first of all, they won a playoff game the last postseason. So
yeah, they did. Don't you know it? Yeah.
Yeah. Which means they must be the best team in football if they could beat those Eagles.
Which, can I just say, I really am happy for Baker. I think Baker is a really great story. A first-round pick who brought a lot of hope to Cleveland, someone who was very loyal to Cleveland. This is a guy who, the one time the Browns made a playoff run during his tenure, this is a guy who played through injury just to get the Browns to that playoff. Cost him dearly in the long run, at least in the near term, but he played through injury to get the Browns to the playoffs, won the Browns a playoff game, which nobody has done in forever. Baker Mayfield did that. But by playing through that injury, put him in a very bad spot, got him ultimately shipped out of Cleveland, and then he was in Carolina for a bit. And when he was in Carolina, that was sad Baker. Sad Baker is not good Baker. Baker is not good when he's sad. But then Carolina was so bad, they shipped him to LA, right, to the Rams. And we all remember that legendary game, literally 3 hours off the plane. He comes into that game for the Rams and leads that thrilling game-winning touchdown drive. Again, mere hours after getting off the plane. That was happy Baker once again. And happy Baker is good Baker. And then after that, Baker found his new forever home in the now post-Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you know what? Happy Baker is back, and happy Baker is here to stay. And I think that's great. Tampa Bay has fallen in love with him. He's fallen in love with them. Everybody's happy. And you know what? Baker feels appreciated. And he feels appreciated and validated in a way that I think he never felt, not from the Browns fans. The Browns fans loved him, but by the Browns front office. I think that's where the difference is. Tampa Bay was willing to push their chips to the center of the table and say, Baker, we believe in you. We want to invest in you. You're our guy. And that makes all the difference. And look at how he's responded, right? Baker is now in the best shape of his career, putting up the best numbers of his career, if that last game is any indication. As you said, made the playoffs, won a playoff game in his first year with the Bucs, won the division last year, right? It's been great. I think that happy Baker is good Baker. I think it's a great story. And yeah, I think that, I'm not saying that the Buccaneers are going to be fighting for Super Bowls anytime soon, but they're good. They're solid. Make no mistake. They have built what they have in Tampa. That's a culture. That's what you have to build if you want to find sustained success in this league. They have a culture, they have an identity, and they have the right guy behind center. Baker's looking good. Everybody's happy. What's not to like?
Yeah. They have a good setup there. I think my only concerns with this team at this point would probably be, I mean, they have some issues in pass coverage with their secondary.
The defense is very hot or cold.
Yes, there's a lot of holes in key spots with on both sides of the ball, honestly. The bigger concern with me is just based on their finish in the standings last year. I was looking at their schedule here. Let's see. They go from starting week 5. They're in Atlanta, and then they go to New Orleans, whatever. Then they play Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, and then San Francisco.
Oof,
all in that little stretch right there.
That's tough. Oof, that's a rough one.
That's a real make or break their season stretch right there.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be tough to come back from if it doesn't go well.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you think about Tampa?
I mean, yeah, that's That's what I'm saying. All the good things you said about Baker, about building this team around him and around what they have right now. But yeah, just those concerns, losing Dave Canales, the holes that they have in certain positions, and just that terrifying stretch right there.
Yes. So, yeah, division winner, what do you think?
It would be between Atlanta and Tampa Bay for me. But I think not only does Atlanta have more talent as a whole, I just think there's more factors in Tampa Bay that can lead to them falling short than there are for Atlanta. So I'm just going to say Atlanta.
Okay. I will say, I said Atlanta before we saw the results of week 1. After week 1, I'm more inclined to say toss-up between Atlanta and Tampa Bay. I think that first game was really strong for Tampa. I believe I have more overall faith in what Atlanta can be, but I have a much better idea of what Tampa is right now. So for me, it really is a toss-up. It's tough to pick between these two. For now, I'm going to stick with Atlanta, but I would not at all be surprised if Tampa Bay wins this division again.
All right. Yeah. Now let's take a quick jaunt through the NFC North and West.
We love a jaunt, don't we? A jaunt is just fantastic.
Love a jaunt. But yeah, NFC North. This, you want to talk about watching week 1. That week could have a major effect on the outcome of this division.
Yes.
But we'll get to that. Let's just, for now, start out with the Vikings. I don't think there's that much to say here. They had a mediocre season last year, 7-10, negative 20-point differential, something around there.
Kirk did miss a good amount of time, so that's a part of it.
Lost him halfway through the year. And this year, the quarterback situation's not any better. They drafted J.J. McCarthy to replace him, lost him before the season started. Now they're starting Sam Darnold.
Yeah, too bad about that. I mean, you hate to see them go down in the preseason like that, especially your starting quarterback. My God.
Really, the only thing to get excited about for the Vikings is their receiver is Justin Jefferson. That's really the only thing that they can get excited about right now.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and also Jordan Addison, pretty good.
That's true. That's true. But otherwise, they're in a rebuilding process. Couple years could be different, but right now, they're at the bottom here. They're at the bottom of this division.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to echo your sentiments. It really is very sad to see J.J. McCarthy go out in the preseason like that. I mean, you never want to see that. That's just terrible, terrible luck. So definitely wishing J.J. McCarthy a speedy recovery, and I'm sure I speak for the entire NFL world when I say that. We want to judge these quarterbacks on their merits. We don't want to see them lose a whole season to nonsense like this. So, we want to see him. We want to see what he can do. So we were all very sad to see that, because J.J. McCarthy was in line to fully inherit this team. A team that has major playmakers, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and now Aaron Jones from Green Bay. We never thought we'd get that guy out of there, but now he's wearing purple. Look at that. So they've got playmakers, and this was supposed to be potentially a very dangerous offense, potentially. And so, now, yes, have their prospects diminished? Definitely. But listen, I mean, Sam Darnold, I'll say this. Sam Darnold, any quarterback would have had their soul crushed during the period of time that Sam Darnold was there. I mean, that was the most thankless task there is. I mean, it was just so awful. Any quarterback's soul would have been crushed trying to make that work. Even Patrick Mahomes couldn't magic his way out of that. So, I do think that Sam Darnold just had some awful luck going to the Jets at that period of time. They were just the worst team in the league. It was so ugly. And so I do think this is a chance for him to, maybe he can't rewrite his entire story, but it is a chance at some kind of redemption for him to show the league that he wasn't totally destroyed by being the starting quarterback of the New York Jets. If he can overcome that, then I think that's a very strong point to his overall legacy. And I think that first game was an indication of that. This is someone who can potentially be capable. Are they going to make the playoffs? Probably not. But the Vikings shouldn't think their entire season is dead just because they've got Sam Darnold in there. I think Sam Darnold sees this as his last best chance at redemption. Because God knows not many quarterbacks get third and fourth chances in this league. You got your first chance, and if you're lucky, you get a second chance. This is Sam Darnold's second chance. There are very few that get third chances and fourth chances. So this is Sam's second chance, and I think he's going to make the most of it. And so the Vikings, they're badly wounded by that bad luck, but they're not dead yet. They're not dead yet. And I think we saw that in week 1. So, it's, dimmed prospects, but not totally destroyed, is what I would say for the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, yeah. I would agree with that, certainly.
Well, shall we? Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Where do you want to go next?
Oh, yes. Well,
Chicago, Green Bay.
Well, let's maneuver over to Green Bay, shall we? The next northernmost of these locations. And, once again, this is greatly informed by what we saw in week 1 because, of course, Jordan Love had a bad bit of luck. MCL sprain in Brazil. That's too bad. Yeah, that hurts. That's not really much of a better way to put that. They've got who do they have in there now at quarterback?
Malik Willis of Liberty University.
Right. Yeah. So we don't know. Yeah. Green Bay, they're wanting Jordan Love to get back as quickly as humanly possible. He had a great season last season. There's no two ways about it. He surprised all of us, especially down the stretch, by how reliable he was. He did a great job. And then the Cowboys. Oh, boy, what he did to the Cowboys. I will always love Jordan Love for how badly he eviscerated and disemboweled the Cowboys at home in the playoffs, in the wild card last year. You remember how good that was? Whew.
Oh, yeah. Jordan Love made himself a quarterback to watch and to pay attention to very quickly.
Yes.
And he did it. And that Cowboys game was just the cherry on top of all of it.
It was fantastic. I loved it. So yes, the Packers have got to get him back as fast as they can. Happens. Yeah. Until that happens, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. But once Love does come back, their prospects get back to what they were, which are, very, very good. Very good, I would say. So, yeah. Losing Jordan Love, bottom line, and this is really all that I can say, losing Jordan Love hurts. You got to get him back as quickly as you can. So
Love hurts.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it so great when we can get Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts to stand next to each other? Isn't that so great? We love that. So, yeah, Green Bay, good team, just have to get their quarterback back. So that's it.
Okay. My internet's kind of crashing at the moment. I can't access my notes right now. But I'll wait for that to load. But yeah, just off the top of my head, Jordan Love was a guy I was really excited to watch this year, so it's very disappointing to see that happen. Thank God he'll be coming back sooner rather than later, but still, I mean, getting a whole start onto the season just without him is going to be rough. And the one game they did have with him, they weren't able to turn that into a victory. So depending on how Malik Willis does, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of hope that he's going to be incredibly good or serviceable, they could have quite a deep hole to be digging themselves out of come 3 to 6 weeks from now.
Which, by the way, I just have to say, Green Bay, to have practically 30 years of going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, just franchise quarterback after franchise quarterback after franchise quarterback. As a Giants fan, I find it obscene, the success that Green Bay has with quarterbacks. Green Bay just gets quarterbacks. I don't know how they do it. You know, in NFL circles, we tend to mock the Green Bay front office as a bunch of khaki-wearing accountants, and they are khaki-wearing accountants. But they get quarterbacks, damn it. And I am so envious of the success that they have had getting the quarterback position right. So, yeah. Good for them, I guess. Must be nice.
Yeah. God, how do they do it? How do they? But anyways, I mean, at the very least, looking at it, it seems like the schedule to start the Green Bay Packers season is not that rough the first couple weeks. So maybe they can pull it out with that. And they've got a lot of young talent on the defense now. So that should help them out a lot. I just think that this is the team we are most want to come back and take another look at midway through the season.
Yeah.
Halfway through, when Jordan Love's back and he's played a couple games, see how he's holding up. We're definitely going to want to, take another look here. Take another look.
Absolutely. And so, what do you say we take a little hop, skip, and a jump across Lake Michigan, down Lake Huron, talk about Detroit?
Yes. Now,
Detroit, we all know that they have had a tremendous amount of success in the past 2 seasons into now. They have harnessed aggressiveness, Dan Campbell's energy, bite their kneecaps off energy, as their ultimate weapon. The weapons to do it. They've had several successive, very good drafts now.
Can you repeat that? I lost you for a good 10 seconds there.
Oh, yes. Well, I was just saying Detroit has wielded aggressiveness as their ultimate weapon. And they have had successive, very successful drafts now. And no one is more aggressive in their style, in their swagger, in their persona, in their play calling than Detroit has been. However, as we saw, that has brought them great riches and great success, and rightly so. Detroit is a team that's easy to root for. They have had so much pain and suffering for so long. It's nice to see them finally get some sustained success. However, as we've seen, there is a dark side to this. As we saw in the playoffs, they made it so far, they did so well, but then they went to San Francisco. And just like Aaron Rodgers' Packers teams before them, they were stopped in San Francisco. And that in that case, they burned up in the flames of their own aggressiveness. And so the question is, Detroit has managed to harness all of that chaos to their advantage. But can they harness it, really? Can they harness and control it so that it doesn't ultimately burn them up as well when they need it most? Can they control the chaos and withstand the fire? This is a great team, a team that we all have high expectations for. This time, no one can be surprised. No one can say we didn't see them coming. Everyone should see them coming now. Now we just have to see, can they not just use that aggressiveness, use that chaos, but harness it into something that is controllable even in the most adverse circumstances, as it was at San Francisco in the conference championship last year?
Well, talk about the conference championship. Yes, they were stopped in San Francisco, but you can't discount the fact that they were one possession away. Just one possession away from the Super Bowl. They were almost there. And they're coming back with almost, outside of the secondary, mostly pretty much the same team.
Yeah.
A lot of different faces in secondary, but on offense, I mean, if anything, they've only improved with their offensive line, and everyone else there is the same. The Lions, there's no reason to think, outside of just betting on general regression to happen, that they shouldn't go just as far as they did last time. This is a really strong team with a lot of incredible talent. You have, I mean, a coach that all of these players would give their life for.
Oh, yeah.
You have a coordinator, Ben Johnson, so confident in this team and so committed to this team that he turned down head coaching offers so that he could stay here in Detroit and win with Detroit.
And not just any head coaching offers, the Washington Commanders head coaching offers, where he could have had a say in who the GM is. He could have drafted his own quarterback. He could have remade new owners. He could have remade that franchise in his image. He could have done. He could have remade it completely for decades, and he turned it down. How about that?
All of this just goes to show you that just this team has to be destined for something. There's some sort of fate that has to be working in this team's favor. This can't all be for nothing.
I hope not.
Detroit is going to go far this season. I think there's no question about that. The only question I could possibly have is, I hate to still be one of those guys in 2024, but the only question is, I'm still not sure. I'm not confident. I'm not sure what is Jared Goff's ceiling. Is it just the wide receivers that are making him look so much better than he is, or has he actually gotten so much better since his time in LA? That's my only question.
I will say I've always been a Jared Goff believer, and you have doubts. For me, I have no doubts. Jared Goff on this team can win a Super Bowl. I don't doubt that. He could, yeah.
I just don't think he's not going to be the star of that Super Bowl, I wouldn't say.
Well, there's a lot of stars in Detroit right now. When was the last time you could say that?
In my lifetime, never.
No. I mean,
that's part of what makes this team so special and why I'm so confident in them.
Yeah.
I really like how this team is built. I think they're going to be really exciting this season. I like these Lions.
I would just wrap up by saying I have no doubt these Lions are capable of going to and winning a Super Bowl, but make no mistake, it will be harder this time. Last year, I think a lot of teams were still a little bit surprised by the sheer level of sustained success that they had. This time, no surprises. Everyone will see them coming. Everybody will have the Lions week circled on their calendars. So they can go all the way, they can win it all, but it will be harder this time than it was last year, because now everybody sees them coming, everybody's watching out for them. It's a totally different game when everybody knows who you are versus surprising the league and rocketing to the top.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's close this out.
The Chicago Bears.
Here is what I will say on them. A lot of people have been very high on the Chicago Bears, very high on Caleb Williams. You have been too, and for good reason. Let's Let's look at Chicago's offense this season. Caleb Williams, brand new to the team. Odunze, brand new to the team. Wide receiver, Odunze. Wide receiver, Keenan Allen, brand new to the team. Running back, DeAndre Swift, brand new to the team. Offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron? Yeah, Shane Waldron. Brand new to the team. This guy's got one hell of a job laid out for him. All of these offensive pieces on this team are brand new, and so is he. And he's got to get them all working together right out the gate. That's a hard job.
An important name that you missed, though, DJ Moore. He's back. He's been around.
Yeah. Right.
He's huge. He's huge.
Yes. But he's the one guy who's still there. So essentially, you have a brand new offense. When you talk from the perspective of skilled position players, you have essentially almost a brand new offense. Because if DJ Moore is the only guy who's still here, he doesn't have that sort of relationship with anybody else. I just think bringing in so many new and important key players all at once could be kind of a hard job for a brand new offensive coordinator to handle.
Perhaps.
And there's just so much hope. The hope of an entire city, of an entire fan base spread out across this country. Such high expectations for this one man, Caleb Williams. That's a lot to handle. That's a lot to weigh on your mind.
Yeah. I mean,
these guys are 100% confident you are going to start killing it right out the gate. The question isn't just, is Caleb Williams, does he have the talent for that? It's also, can he handle all of that? You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
Of course it is. But I think he's up to it. I mean, I haven't seen anything that would suggest to me he's not up to it. So, yeah.
The quest for 4,000 yards is not off to a good start.
Well, but listen, I mean, there have been some great quarterbacks in this league who have struggled mightily in their first game, in their entire first season. So I don't hold that against him. But yeah, I mean, listen, Caleb Williams is the most hyped player of any sport to be drafted to Chicago in the history of ever. Not even Michael Jordan, when he was drafted 3rd overall in, when was it? 1984. Michael Jordan drafted 3rd overall in 1984. Not even he got this level of hype in Chicago. Caleb Williams is the most hyped draftee in any Chicago sport ever. And so, my headline on the Chicago Bears is hope springs eternal and hope rises again. I think that Caleb Williams has the potential. Again, it's all about how do you realize that potential, but the potential is there to be the greatest quarterback in the history of Chicago Bears football. A franchise that has never had a 4,000-yard passer. Caleb Williams could be that. The potential is there. We'll have to see how it's realized, but there's no doubt in my mind the potential is there. I think that hope is a very powerful thing, especially in NFL football. I think that hope is a more tangible thing in this sport than in any other major sport in this league in terms of how it translates to results on the field. I think that a change in trajectory, a change in momentum is something that you can really feel in this sport. That's one of the many reasons why we love NFL football. Hope can be an incredible motivator. And I think that it will be in the case of the Chicago Bears. I'm not saying they're going to become world beaters overnight. They have a lot of questions to answer. But I'm not going to hold it against them for bringing in a lot of high-level players. Sure, they may be new, but we've seen a lot of new people coming in and free agents can work out. I mean, we saw the Rams did that in their first Super Bowl run with McVay. Those were almost all expensive, high-level free agents, and they didn't win that Super Bowl, but they made it there.
There are other factors at play, though, that I say doesn't mean it's going to fail. That just makes it a question mark. Like you said, the Rams had McVay. The Caleb Williams and his Bears have a 10-24 Matt Eberflus,
who is on the hot seat potentially.
That could be a factor that changes the results here.
It's possible. It's possible. But I think that they have a lot of hope in Chicago, and I think that is a powerful thing. And again, we'll see, but honestly, I do want to believe. I like the pieces that they have. I like what they've done. And I want to see it work out because I think that would be a great story. And I think it would be a great thing to happen for another blue blood franchise in a great American city. You know, I think Chicago deserves that. I think we would all like to see that. And so I want to believe. Again, we'll see. I don't know. But I like what they've done. I like where they're going. I like Caleb. So why shouldn't it work? So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think it will work. I like what they're doing. And I think that it's a great thing for the city of Chicago, which is a great sports city. God, they love their sports in Chicago. I mean, it's one of the world's best sports cities. I think they deserve this. So I hope it works out. I really do.
I mean, I can't disagree with you. I think the concern is just, the question marks and the fact that he's coming into the Bears finally get their quarterback and they finally have hope, but it's coming at just the right time where they're coming into an NFC North that is becoming once again quite competitive.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
It's just I wish for Chicago's sake they could have done this like a couple years earlier,
Sure. Oh yeah.
They're coming into an already hot NFC North.
I mean, you think about it, Detroit, Green Bay with Jordan Love, the Vikings back at full health, and Chicago, that's a juggernaut, man. That's brutal. I tell you, the NFC North is looking scary now. So,
yeah.
Whew, yeah. All right. Well, oh yes, winners. Winner of the NFC North.
I'm giving this to the team that I just said is destined to win it all. The team who I believe has fate on its side, the Detroit Lions.
Yes, and I find it impossible, really, to argue with that. Detroit is just fantastic. As I said, they've harnessed chaos. They've harnessed aggressiveness. Now let's just see them control it and use it to their maximum advantage. But they are terrific. It's a fantastic coach, fantastic roster, fantastic culture, fantastic vision, fantastic momentum, and a ton of hope themselves. Everything is right.
Chaos is unpredictable. To succeed in chaos, sometimes you just have to be lucky. So
chaos is a ladder, right?
if the Lions keep gambling, one day they're going to win.
I think so.
They're that guy going through the dirt tunnels, hitting for diamonds. They're not going to turn back now because the diamonds are right here.
Yeah. And so, yeah, a lot of respect for Green Bay, a lot of love for Chicago, but I'm picking Detroit.
Alrighty, let's move on to our final. You hear that? Final division.
We made it.
This week of predictions that we will be having has finally made it to its last topic.
Yes.
Last topic, the NFC West.
And honestly, I think this should be our quickest division because this is the first division and the first and only division where I feel like we know pretty much exactly what all four of these teams are. Where are the mysteries in the NFC West? Are there any mysteries?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think this division has a lot more different ways than it can go than the NFC South, for example. I don't know. I guess we'll get to it, but there's some teams where I don't know what I think they're going to be.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started.
Maybe we should start with one of those teams, in fact.
Yeah. Where would you like to start?
The Arizona Cardinals.
The Arizona Cardinals. Right. Well, I think it's good. Kyler is back, full health, full strength. He suffered that ACL nasty bit of luck at the very end of 2022, missed a good chunk of 2023. Now he's back, full bore, full strength. They have their home opener against the Rams this weekend. We'll see how that goes. But I think one of the biggest stories here that we have to talk about is one Marvin Harrison Jr., right? This is a guy who comes in.
Son of Marvin Harrison?
I know. Everybody says this guy comes from the elite NFL receiver bloodline. He has got the pedigree. He's got everything. He was the first receiver taken off the board. Very high expectations. DeAndre Hopkins found a good deal of success in Arizona. Now Marvin Harrison Jr. steps into that role. So I think that the Cardinals have a lot going for them. And I also drafted Kyler Murray for my fantasy team this year, so I am certainly hoping that he has a lot of success, and I think he will. I think that this is a team that is reinvigorated. I think that they have bought in to what this new coach, Jonathan Gannon, has tried to instill, who used to be one of yours, by the way. Your defensive coordinator, I think, did a very good job as defensive coordinator. Based on what I've seen and what I've read, the Cardinals have really bought into the vision that he has brought to this team. They believe in him. They believe in what he's trying to do. And so I see no reason why the Cardinals should not have a good deal of success this year. The only thing that can stop them is being in a very tough division. That's what it is. It's a very tough division. But these Cardinals are good. I'm rooting for Kyler. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. could be huge. I really do. Yeah, they're good. They are definitely good in my book. They're good in a great division. So that's tough, but they are good.
I guess, the biggest concern with Kyler Murray at this point is in the past 2 seasons, he's played a total of 19 games. So the Cardinals need to see a full season out of this guy. They need to. They need to get the full season out of him to be competitive in this division this year.
Which is not unprecedented. We saw that in 2020. I think 2019 too. He was healthy the whole time. So we have seen that at different points. So
yeah, that's true. And also, isn't it kind of hard to know a lot about the Arizona Cardinals? Nobody talks about them.
Yeah, it is
Nobody
a little bit.
Talks about them.
Yeah, but honestly, there is a good side to that because that means they're low drama. That's what we want. Low drama, low stress. Sometimes not a ton of noise is a good thing.
Yeah. No fans on Twitter to highlight all the bad stuff about them. Because the Cardinals fans, if they're out there, they're not very outspoken people.
No. Well, and you've seen this because you live out west. There are Cardinals fans in Arizona. There are plenty of Cardinals fans in Arizona, but they don't really travel so much, do they?
No, it's too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or I guess everywhere else is too cold.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
What did I have written down for them? It was about their defensive line. Very poor against the run last year, and also third least in sacks. And they've done little, if at all, to address that. So they're going to, sounds like, have a lot of trouble pressuring the quarterback, which I feel like they'll need to be doing, certainly when they're playing San Francisco. But other than that, I think the Arizona Cardinals, yeah, they have an uphill battle, but it's certainly a battle they have the potential to win, or at least do very well at, perhaps appear in the wild card. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of potential here. We're going to need to see where this goes.
Agreed.
But yeah, that was one of my question marks. Unless you have anything else you want to say about Arizona.
No, I think that covers it. Yeah. I said, a good team in a great division. So we'll see.
I also don't really know what to think about Seattle. Do you?
Yeah, I would say Seattle is probably the biggest question mark in this division for me.
The post-Pete Carroll Seattle.
Yes, they kicked Pete Carroll upstairs, firing by promotion, as they say. And now they've got, let's see, what's his name here? Mike Macdonald, yes, who did a fantastic job in Baltimore. I mean, coached up the most fearsome defense in the league. And Seattle has got a great identity for strong defenses, the Legion of Boom. That'll never go away. I think a great coaching hire by Seattle. If you are gonna kick Pete Carroll upstairs, that's a great hire, definitely, for what I think is one of the great jobs that was open this cycle. So yeah, what can the Seahawks be? I don't know.
By the way, fun fact: now the youngest head coach in the league.
Yeah, which I think that's great, honestly.
I think they went from oldest to youngest? I
think so. I think that was a big part of why it was so good. And so I think a great hire by Seattle, but what else do we know for sure? Obviously, Geno being better than we all thought, that's old news by now. We know that Geno was better than we all gave him credit for, but he does still have a definite ceiling. Let's be honest about that. Nobody's making a deep playoff run with Geno. He's fine in the regular season, but there's still a next gear, a top gear, if you will, that Seattle can reach, that they're not at yet. Exactly. And so, that is their limiting factor. And again, very solid regular season team, but the season doesn't just end there. I mean, they have bigger aspirations than that. And so ultimately, Geno is fine for now, but what's the succession plan? Who's next to then kick the Seahawks into that top gear? That's what we have to see. So, great hire, a team that I have definite respect for, but yeah, we know they've got a high floor, but what's their ceiling? I think it's a high floor, low ceiling, quite honestly.
I would agree. You say Geno Smith himself as a quarterback has a ceiling. But if you're a quarterback who's average to above average, but there's definitely a limit to your abilities, what better way to ensure success anyway than to surround him by people like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett,
which has been a big part of it. Yeah.
JSN had a quiet rookie season, but there's still a lot of talent there. Yeah. And you've got Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet behind you. Yep. There's plenty of talent on that offense to walk right alongside Geno Smith.
Sure.
Yeah. So that in mind, yeah, I think they have enough firepower to keep a decent offense going. It could be not the smoothest transition. Pete Carroll's been running this team for so long that, it could be there could be some getting used to, some growing pains with the new guy. So we're just gonna have to see how much of an effect the absence of Pete Carroll is going to have on this team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also JSN, like I said, he had a quiet rookie season, so hopefully they find a way to involve him more in the offense. I certainly hope so. He's on my fantasy team.
There you go. So, yeah, all right. Well, final two. Shall we talk about the Rams? LA, a team with high hopes,
Yes, let's talk about the Rams because I would like to hear what your thoughts on the Rams. Not only because I know what you picked last week, but also something big has happened with them. Big news with the
Yes.
Rams.
Yes. Well.
Not only for our predictions, but also for you personally and your
Yes.
fantasy team. My
Yes.
condolences,
Yes.
first
Yes.
off. But if you want to talk about it more, go ahead.
Yes. Well. A team with high hopes, very high hopes, certainly. Um, and actually, you mentioned who I picked. Who did I pick? I picked the Rams over Detroit last week, didn't I? And I mean, it was bloody close. I mean, I'm sure you saw that game.
It was a great
Overtime,
game.
first overtime of the season. That's pretty exciting. I mean, it was very, very close. I'm sure you would agree. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
a very plausible pick. The Rams, as ever, they've got very high expectations. We thought that their rebuild would continue last year. Instead, they took off, got back into contention form. Um, and of course, we have to talk about Puka Nacua being a big part of that. Kyron Williams, too, as well, also. But Puka Nacua, I think, was the biggest story. Um, and I did draft him in the first round of our fantasy draft, and I felt very good about that. I still feel good about that, but now an issue has come up. I'm told it's a bursa sac knee issue, which has led to them assuming out of an abundance of caution to put him on, which takes him out of the picture for at least 4 weeks, which is very sad to me. It's heartbreaking to me because obviously Puka Nacua, as my first round pick, is the centerpiece of my fantasy strategy. And so that is certainly disappointing to me, but it could happen to anybody. Of course, it did happen to me, but that's another story. And so disappointed about that. But hey, it's far from the end of the world because now Cooper Kupp just comes back in and takes back his role as number one.
By the way, can I just say, on the topic of receivers on our fantasy teams, I just snuck my eye over to the side for a second, and I just want to. This is so funny. As you're talking about your concerns with Puka, they're doing a little feature on Jalen Waddle, who's on a receiver for my team, and they were doing a little feature on how he's running his routes so well, and yet Tua for some reason isn't targeting him. So that makes me feel good about my fantasy team as well. By the way, our receiver situations are both concerns.
At least your receiver's playing. Listen, Puka will be back. I mean, this is still a very young guy. He'll bounce back and he'll be back before too long.
Sure.
But for now, I don't have him, which is too bad for me. But he will be back, and the Rams are looking great. Again, they rocketed back into contention last year, and they fully intend to stay there this year. I think Week 1's game was proof to that. So a team with high hopes, high expectations, with the players that they need to make another run. I mean, obviously, it was just 3 years ago they won the Super Bowl, so not like they have anything to prove. I mean, they've proven it. So,
and like you were saying, just this week one, they put up one hell of a fight against, and could have just as easily beaten one of the big three of the NFC right now.
absolutely. So we've seen the Rams go all the way recently. I have no doubt this team can do it again. Aaron Donald retired. That's too bad. That guy's a legend. But I still have high hopes and high expectations for the Rams. I think they'll go far. I think they'll do very well. They want to put themselves back on top of this division. The 49ers have kind of taken it over again. The Rams want to go back on top. And that means not only beating the Niners at home, but also going on the road and beating the Niners in San Francisco. If they can do that, this division is theirs. So, yeah, really, I've got nothing but good things to say about the Rams. They're great. Matthew Stafford's great. Cooper Kupp is great. Puka's great. Kyron's great. Sean McVay's great. We're all good. It's sunny in LA, I think.
Yeah, a lot of hope here, a lot of talent here. So my concerns with this team, basically, it's impossible to replace Aaron Donald. You can't do it.
No. And you shouldn't try, by the way.
1 in a million. Exactly. No. If it happens to, if a player like, once in a generation player like Aaron Donald happens to land in your lap again, rejoice, but don't go looking for it. You're not going to find it.
No.
Cooper Kupp has had his problems with injuries, and he's getting old. There's a very good chance for slowing down for regression this year.
But by the time Cooper Kupp breaks, Puka will be back, so no problem.
And that's another thing I was going to say. Yes, you lost Puka week 1. He's going to be out for a while. But this team has done a very good job at showing McVay and the coaching staff. Puka's own origin story is a very good indicator for why Rams fans shouldn't be too concerned about the loss of Puka. His own story is the reason for him getting injured not being too much of a concern, because the Rams seem pretty good at working around these kinds of things.
Oh yeah.
They've really nailed down next man up to the point of making potential rookies of the year out of them. So yeah, losing Puka is a concern, but it shouldn't be too much of a concern for this team.
Indeed. Which brings us, at long last, to our final team. It's been a long road, and we've made it. We are here.
Yes.
And the final team we're going to talk about is the Super Bowl runner-up.
My second favorite team after the Dallas Cowboys.
The San Francisco 49ers. Well, there's a lot of teams that want revenge after the playoffs, as there always are. And I think perhaps, the Bills want revenge, the Ravens want revenge, the Rams want revenge, the Packers want revenge, but does anyone want revenge quite as much as the 49ers want revenge? I mean, they had it. Once again, they had it in the palm of their hand, and they took the Chiefs all the way down to overtime, and they just could not seal the deal. I mean, this is a great team. First of all, we have to talk about Christian McCaffrey. This guy is a one-man death squad, right? This is a one-man killing machine. He's just this unstoppable automaton robot that just, like a tank or a 4x4, he just crashes through whatever you've got. He doesn't give a fuck. He just goes. He looks where he wants to go, and he goes there. He doesn't care. He just goes. He doesn't care who's in his way. He just walks over him. Doesn't even give a shit. This is a one-man killing machine, right? And in many ways, I really love that meme of comparing Kyle Shanahan's 2019 Super Bowl run to Kyle Shanahan's 2023 Super Bowl run to being Anakin Skywalker versus Darth Vader. 2019, that was Anakin, Kyle Shanahan. Last year, we have full Vader, Kyle Shanahan, empowered by that one-man killing machine in Christian McCaffrey. They're terrific. Great offensive line, great defensive line. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Brock Purdy, who, again, has surpassed everyone's expectations. He's been terrific. So efficient. I mean, is he the flashiest? No. But he is so fucking efficient. It's unbelievable. I mean, this guy gives new meaning to the word efficiency as a quarterback. What else can I say? An incredibly well-run, well-structured, well-organized, well-coached team. And they want revenge. Will they get it? I don't know. But there's no reason why this team won't be as successful as they have been last year and the year before that, and quite frankly, the year before that even. I mean, this is just San Francisco. They run a damn good football team, and it works. And they've got all the pieces in place right now, and they know it. They know what they've got, and they know that if they want to make another deep run, they will. I would not at all be surprised if we see another Detroit 49ers NFC championship. I would not at all be surprised if we saw that. Just well put together, well coached from top to bottom. What can you say? I mean, the Niners, blue blood franchise in this league, and they're great.
I mean, yeah, what else can I say? The offense, stacked, completely stacked, top to bottom. The defense, completely stacked, top to bottom. The coaching staff, incredible. The success is there. All the question marks, contract-wise, signed, done, deal, pen to paper, we're good.
Yeah.
Everyone's still there. And it's just, like, we talked about earlier about how there's absolutely no reason to think that the Chiefs can't three-peat. This might be the reason. Think, like, on paper, if you just look at the names on the sheets and what these people are capable of, San Francisco's by far the most well-rounded team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Offense and defense. Look at, I mean, they lose, even when they lose Christian McCaffrey, you know, he didn't play week 1. He's not going to play week 2. This Mason guy, who they had step up in his place week 1, he had something to prove. He was out there. He was doing it. He was doing incredibly well.
Oh yeah. The Niners find incredible value in later rounds. I don't know how they do it, but their scouting department is top notch, top rated.
I mean, Brock Purdy is the ultimate testament to that style of scouting at its best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's nobody better than them at that. The only thing really that has prevented the only reason that they don't have 2 more Super Bowl rings right now than they already do is solely because of the existence of Patrick Mahomes. That's it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's so crazy to think about. Even Shanahan's derivatives have been great. I mean, you look at DeMeco Ryans in Houston, winner. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, winner. Mm-hmm. Mike McDaniel in Miami, winner.
There's so much talent on the San Francisco 49ers that it's literally spilling on to the rest of the league.
To the rest of the league. I mean, even Robert Saleh, he hasn't gotten the quarterback right, but those defenses have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would argue they've all been winners. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, the Shanahan and the McVay coaching trees are just insane. Because Shanahan has got Houston, Miami, the Jets, and Green Bay. And McVay has got Cincinnati. He's got Minnesota. And who else? And Atlanta now. And so it's just incredible. I mean, isn't that just wild?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, when you look at, like, the previous dynasty, I mean, New England was doing great in New England. Anytime any of those coaches ventured out from under Belichick,
they're terrible.
But the San Francisco 49ers, look at them. They're so charitable. They have so much talent that they're just giving it out to everybody.
They are literally, I swear to God, Shanahan and McVay are literally lifting up the rest of the league by giving other teams these great coaches. I don't know what the hell's going on. But, I mean, you put those lists together, that's what, 10 teams almost, including San Francisco and the Rams themselves?
Mm-hmm.
That's like almost a third of the league.
Yeah.
That's either coached by these guys or their acolytes.
And let me tell you, anytime one of these coaching, any of the people on this coaching staff, anytime these guys are available,
and you know what?
Oh, wait, sorry, were you talking?
No, not just now.
Okay.
I was just saying that they've got acolytes all over the league, and they're lifting the entire league up.
Yeah, okay. No, I heard you say that, and then I heard you say that again, so I thought I was talking over you.
Oh, yeah, I think we had a bit of hiccup. But yeah.
But anytime one of these guys is available, I mean, are you kidding me? The whole league's snapping for him.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a piece of these guys.
Rightly so. So it's just incredible. Really, it is. So, anything else about the Niners that we want to say?
No, they have all of the tools that they need to go and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They have everything they need, certainly to win the division, I think.
Sure. Oh yeah. I would say that they can achieve all of their dreams just so long as they're not up by 10 points playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Just so long as that doesn't happen, then all of their dreams are within reach.
Yep. Any other AFC teams in there? Guaranteed win for them.
Sure.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, I think so.
But it would be all the more sweeter for them if they get that ring playing Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure that's what they want more than anything.
They want Mahomes there.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Who they
Yeah, they want Mahomes there, but this time they're going to make sure Mahomes gets the lead going into halftime.
Yeah.
Make sure that happens, and then we're in with a shot. So, all right. NFC West, who do we like?
49ers. That's it.
There's
a lot of talent elsewhere in this division, but I mean, these guys are going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think you summed it up perfectly. They have everything that they need. They just need to seal the deal, but they have everything they need. So
they have everything they need and more. They have everything they need and a good backup plan for everything if that first thing doesn't work out too.
Yeah, contingencies upon contingencies.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, as much as I think that there is a credible case to be made, if you want to say the Rams surprise us and they take the crown, I think that could happen. But, yeah, I think San Francisco, they've won this division a couple of times back-to-back now. I think they'll do it again.
Yep. So, yeah, there we go.
There it is.
That concludes prediction week.
Which, by the way, it also concludes our almost 8-hour-long cumulative episode 1. Our full NFL season preview is in the books at last. We did it. We had so much to say, apparently 8 hours worth of stuff to say. Yep. And now it'll all be out there. So
and every second is worth listening to.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we had a great time, didn't we? I think we had a great time.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. This was good. We should do it again sometime.
We should. And so before we sign off, let me give the folks a chance to see our predictions here. So, one moment. Let's pull this up here. In the meantime, any closing thoughts on what we've got here?
Just that I think every single one of these is correct. And I think top to bottom, I have perfectly called how this NFL season is going to go.
Well, I greatly look forward to, because of course at the end of the season we'll come back to this and we'll look at this to see how correct we were. And so of course we'll have a chance to test that by the end of all of this when all is said and done. So look forward to that.
Give all the reasons why each of these decisions was a bad one.
Well, I think we did a pretty good job, and I'm very curious to see how our agreements and, quite frankly, our differences shake out, because we did have a couple of differences that I think is worth noting. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing just how right we were. And let me show the folks here what we've got in terms of our picks. Okay, are you able to see that?
I see a Google Drive folder.
Well, let me correct that. Go. Now you should have it.
Yes. There we go.
Okay, so here are our complete divisional predictions. AFC East, both selecting Miami. AFC South, both selecting Houston. AFC North, both selecting Baltimore. AFC West, both selecting the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs. The NFC East, Dallas versus Philadelphia. We'll see how that shakes up. Should be very close, I think. NFC South, we both like Atlanta, although, like I said, I would not be surprised if Tampa Bay takes that division again. NFC North, we're unanimous on Detroit, but again, hell of a division, very tough. And then the NFC West, I'm going to revise my pick from the Rams back to San Francisco. And with that, our full season predictions are complete. We also have some wildcard picks here, which we'll show on the screen for posterity. These could shift as the season goes on, so stay tuned. But for now,
I have half a mind to change him.
yeah, and so these could shift, so stay tuned for that. But for now, these are our early season wildcard picks.
Yep.
And with that, our full predictions come to a close. Well, I think it's high time we get out of here and let the season speak for itself.
Yeah. I think this has been a lot of fun. Yeah. Well, here's to another season of football. I am hyped for it.
Here's to another season of football, indeed. And hey, good job to us. We made it to the end.
Yeah.
That's an achievement. All right. Well, you know what? I tell you what, we may just catch the fourth quarter of Bills Dolphins. So let's get out of here and watch that. Thank you all so much at home for watching, and we will speak to you again soon with episode 2, which we promise will not be 8 hours long, of The Extra Point. Talk to you then, everybody. Goodbye.